what are some of the kind of misconceptions that people think, or commonly think about the military, that maybe aren't true?
Yeah, I think the most obvious one is that they think it's some sort of dictatorship where everybody gets shouted at, sworn at, and it's basically whatever somebody says is blindly obeyed. Now there are certain times at certain points in your military career where that is absolutely needed. If you are,
Yeah.
suddenly being faced with a barrage of bullets and bombs going one way, you need people just to do as they are told. And you need to do as you are told to make the whole thing happen instantly, because you're in that really high intensity, high pressure environment. But actually, a lot of the time, the military is training and preparing for those types of operations. And a lot of the philosophy that the military has and is gaining increasingly is one of more empowered delegation, really. So one in which the senior leadership and leadership all the way down through is guiding where they want to end up and saying this is the sort of situation we see ourselves finishing at, but not being too dictative around what needs to happen. So the way in which we describe it, if you like, and there's a fantastic book that if people are interested in can sort of encapsulate this. Or there's two books, I suppose. The first one is by a chap called David Marquette, and it's called Turn the Ship Around. It's well worth a read.
Okay.
And the other one is by Stanley McChrystal called Team of Teams, both of which allude to this approach, essentially. And maybe while we're on the topic of books, I suppose there's a third one that might be worth considering, because it gives more of a commercial angle to the previous two, which is The Art of Action by Stephen Bungay. All three of those kind of work in and around this space that the military now use. They recognize that in all circumstances, you need to be high tempo and very agile. English sense of agile, not the consultancy IT sense, project management. So to be agile, you need to have decision making at all levels, or you need to have authority at all levels. And clearly the military played that because you have rank structures, etc. But it's actually about empowering those and allowing people to feel that they've got the ability to do that. So the way in which the military tries to operate is for leaders to say what they want to happen, but not how.
Have you
and to
read?
Allow the teams to come up with a how.
There's a book by a guy called American called Jocko Willink. It's called Extreme Ownership. And the way he describes it, I was going to say, I've got a whole bookshelf. This is my office at home. I seem to have a strange fascination with the military and SAS 2 days wins and different things. I don't know why, because I'd be useless. But anyway, and the way that he describes it is a commander's intent. So that the most senior people set the objective, take the bridge, but they don't tell you how to take it. And I think that is almost applicable for a lot of the companies that I work with, which are smaller, because you need almost the empowerment of the team to help delegate, just to get stuff done. That I think it's a big thing that sometimes I think people are worried about making mistakes or doing things wrong that actually they don't really do anything. As well, I think some of the companies I work with, they almost just want a bit of extra leadership and guidance, not to tell them what to do, but to say what they want to do is okay. And I think there's a lot of lessons that people can learn from yourself and those kind of books.
Absolutely. That concept of intent is very powerful. You're right. Even in an organization, like you're saying, in the niche that you find yourself in of that sub 100, because there still will be maybe 2 or 3 layers, if you like, of management within an organization of that size. And the intent can be different at different layers. So as long as they all align and the organization is aligned, it could be that the CEO or the managing director, she or he are saying, I want to do this in a really quite aggressive, driven way, taking lots of risks. But for a particular facet of the organization, two layers down, they need to get something absolutely right in order to provide the ability to take that risk. So the finance function is a classic one. The finance function need to ensure that everything that they have is accurate to allow people to say, how much risk are we taking now based on this analysis, financial analysis? So the intent is really useful. It can change at different layers, but I think the other piece that comes in here is a little bit of a framework around that, and some
freedom
delegations
and a framework concept.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's, if you just give people intent and say, we want to capture the bridge, but I'm not going to tell you how, well, they could go on a 200-mile detour, you know, which is epic and makes no sense whatsoever. They still are going to take the bridge, and they're still, how, you know, it's up to them how, but it doesn't really make sense. So trying to not constrain people too much, but just put some parameters around that, I think, is also important.
No, honestly, I think it's brilliant, but it's also, you can apply it in almost any business, and I do as well. And actually, I still have, from when I listened to your webinar, I have my book next to me and where I write my notes. And when I listen, I have quite a visual memory, so I actually draw pictures. So I draw a little frame, and it's how I kind of remember things.
Yeah.